Part of the pelvis had been shattered and fused into an unnatural geometry that made motion anatomically impossible and was not reflective of Lucy's true anatomy. Let's see what they decided to do about it. And there it is. Lovejoy was doing absolutely nothing whatsoever to the fossils. He made a copy in plaster in order to further investigate their arrangement and mechanics due to the original sample having been shattered and fused in an unnatural way. And when finished, the hip matched the knee, both indicating that Lucy walked upright. In case you missed it, let's play those key bits one more time.
This PBS documentary shows anthropologist Owen Lovejoy manipulating the fossils to make Lucy walk upright.
There is no getting around this. Lyskin and the DI lied, and they lied hard. They deliberately misrepresented the Nova doc. They literally play the exact clip where the narration says that he is manipulating a plaster copy and simply omit the audio, while accusing him of manipulating the fossil itself in order to deviously make a quadruped appear like a biped because of his evil materialist agenda. To make it as clear as possible, just look at the transcript for the portion they played. Now let's restore what they cut out. As you can see, Lovejoy isn't the only one cutting pieces out. Again, there is no mention from the DI of the lockable knee joint, which is a crucial detail that made Lovejoy suspicious of the pelvis in the first place, since a knee for walking upright and a pelvis for walking on all fours do not go together. Lyskin then omitted that Lovejoy noticed the pelvis was broken into a series of individual pieces, which were then fused together in later fossilization. He deliberately left out these crucial details, which explain what Lovejoy was actually doing and why, and in this way, Lyskin and the DI have committed slander. This is a criminal offense worthy of a lawsuit. There is no denying this. You don't have to understand an ounce of science. It is clear as day that this is textbook manipulation. The DI knows that nobody watching their video will go and look for the Novadoc or its easily Googleable transcript to get more context or verify these claims. They know that any creationist watching will just believe them at face value, but anyone with a shred of honesty can now see the reality of the situation. It is a premeditated lie. Folks at the DI sat down and deliberated over how they could lie in order to most effectively cast doubt on empirical science substantiating intermediary species between apes that walk on all fours and humans that walk upright. What does Dr. Lovejoy think of all this? Perhaps he has a comment. Indeed he does. I have rarely seen such colossal dishonesty in any film or video that I have ever seen. It's amazing but terribly disheartening for the future of science that there are organized groups dispensing such trash. Sincerely, Owen. Unfortunately, the dishonesty doesn't end there. Lyskin is hell-bent on misrepresenting not only PBS and Lovejoy, but other related research. In the video, Lyskin complains that Lucy's feet were never recovered, but are shown as human-like in restorations.
They did not even find feet associated with Lucy's skeleton. She's almost always depicted as an upright walking, ape-like species.
What he completely ignores are human-like footprints called the Laetoli footprints that were attributed to her taxon, the Australopithecines. He also ignores the foot material from STW-573, another member of Australopithecus afarensis that is nearly a complete skeleton. This specimen is colloquially known as Littlefoot and presents the same bipedal traits as Lucy, or AL2881. Are you curious what these numbers are for? They are necessary because there are thousands of specimens making up over 300 individuals in the genus, including 4 other species: skulls, vertebrae, phalanges, long bones, and more. Lyskin complains about Lucy like it's the only one, which again can only be dishonesty or profound ignorance. All of these Australopithecine specimens possess a suite of characteristics that not only make them efficient bipeds, but made it biomechanically impossible for them to be anything else. The bowl-shaped pelvis and lockable knee we mentioned, a valgus knee for holding their weight, an inline big toe and 3 arches like humans, an anteriorly located foramen magnum, positioning the vertebral column directly underneath, thereby demanding upright posture. The evidence is conclusive. But when you want to pretend no evidence exists for something, you can always just ignore the mountain of existing evidence, I suppose. Lyskin then referred to a 2000 article in the journal Nature, From Forelimbs to 2 Legs, by Collard and Aiello, which he claimed referred to Lucy as a knuckle walker. He said this:
In fact, an article in the journal Nature studied the hand bones of Lucy and found that she had the knuckles of a knuckle walker.
As you can see, he said this while showing a bit of the actual text of the article, which he highlighted as saying, "These features are thought to be associated with knuckle walking, seemingly in line with their desire to portray Lucy as an ape." Now, does this article say what he claims it is saying? Not by a long shot. If you actually read the paper, which is only 1.5 pages, it is not making the case that A. afarensis was a quadruped. These 2 paragraphs literally begin with the phrase, "The basic facts are not in dispute." A. afarensis has a combination of traits not seen among living primates. They have human-like features, like the foot, big toe, and pelvis, and features more familiar to Miocene apes, like the fingers, arms, and chest. Then it outlines the true discussion as to whether the ape-like features are non-functional retentions from ancestral species, or whether the ape-like traits are functionally important, and a mixed locomotor repertoire was utilized due to the importance of getting around in trees. It then goes on to specify that the study this article is referencing favors the former, which is literally the precise opposite of the conclusion Lyskin claims it is making. It's funny, I'm not an anthropologist, and I was able to understand this paper just fine. Why do you think Lyskin botched it so badly? Is he a complete moron, or was he deliberately obfuscating the contents of the article? Also, this article is referencing a study by Richmond and Straight that is found in the very same issue of this journal. Why did he not cite that one? He merely showcased text from a preliminary article, From Forelimbs to 2 Legs, in News and Views that was introducing the main paper, evidence that humans evolved from a knuckle-walking ancestor. This paper is full of anatomical terminology that is a little dense, although fascinating, but it clearly concludes that the knuckle-walking features, if present at all, represent a synapomorphy of the African ape and human clade. Since that sentence might not mean much to most people, let's see how this paper was summarized by Henry G. in his supplement, These Fists Were Made for Walking, where he said, Richmond and Straight have looked at the wrist bones of 2 extinct members of the human family, Australopithecus anamensis from Kenya and Australopithecus afarensis, the famous Lucy skeleton from Ethiopia, as they report in Nature. Both, for example, were bipeds. They walked as upright as you or I, and probably not on their knuckles. It is also in agreement with Collard and Aiello that the knuckle-walking features are relics of organisms that were common ancestors of African apes and humans. Why didn't Lyskin quote any of that? I think I know. What do we call this deceptive tactic? Dr. Richmond was asked if Luskin was correct in his summary of the paper that an article in the journal Nature studied the hand bones of Lucy and found that she had the hand bones of a knuckle walker. He replied, "Wow, yes, Luskin's comment is a flagrant mischaracterization of our scientific results. Lucy did not have the hands of an active knuckle walker. Rather, there is evidence from her anatomy that her ancestors seemed to have had knuckle walking adaptations." If it isn't abundantly clear by now that Luskin's video was a bogus hit piece, I don't know what else to tell you. And this is not an isolated occurrence. This is the modus operandi of the Discovery Institute. This is what they do. I pointed this out numerous times in my response to James. With him, there was the blatant quote mine of Matthew Powner, the complete misrepresentation of Donna Blackman, the faster-than-light-speed cutoff of Lee Cronin, and the bald-faced lies about Jack Shostak, just to name a few. Luskin uses precisely the same tactics. These charlatans have no ability to discredit the science that invalidates their archaic worldview, so they have to lie about it. This is not mere stupidity. It is deliberate and malicious dishonesty. This is all you really need to know about Casey Luskin. He's a dime-a-dozen apologist preaching outside of his field and lying through his teeth, consistently and repeatedly. Again, anyone who merely cites his degree status as a reason to believe what he's saying is a moron. A PhD in geology does not qualify one to talk about anthropology or any other field but geology. It is simply that creationist propaganda mills have so few PhD holders at their disposal that they have to spread them paper thin and present them as authorities in field they have zero training in. So to anyone desperately playing the qualifications game in the comments section, save your breath. Casey and I are equally qualified in anthropology, and that is not at all qualified. The difference is that he lies about it, and I don't. People who actually care about degree status would listen to the tens of thousands of working anthropologists with doctorates actively publishing research in the field, who unanimously agree on the descent of modern primates like humans from a common ancestor. If degrees matter, then those tens of thousands of degrees in the field are incomparably more valuable than Casey's one degree in an unrelated field. What's that? Their degrees don't matter? Then guess what? Neither does his, or any other this one guy from Harvard they try to throw at you. You can't play it both ways. This imbalance in credibility is a huge problem for the DI, so they have to somehow cast doubt on the entire scientific community in one fell swoop. And of course their angle is corruption. Casey himself complains on his website about the academic censorship of Darwinian critics. This is totally idiotic. There is no censorship in science. Science